Hi, I'm Sharon, and I just wanted to share a story with you guys about our son Josh and the way that we use the newspaper to reach the community. So Josh is a young man who's now 19. He is into powerlifting and a lot of other things. In the end of 2012 we moved to Whangarei from Dunedin, and Josh wanted to get a job. He'd had a job in Dunedin in a real estate firm and loved it. And coming to Whangarei, he was quite bored because A, he didn't know anybody, and B, he didn't have a job. And so he wanted a job and he couldn't find one. So one day he came in and he said, "Mum, I need to write a letter to the editor." Well, actually he said to the newspaper, and see if they'll write a story about me for a job. And I was like, okay, well, you start writing it and I'll have a look over it, which is just as well I did, because he told them about the dog dying of cancer and all those sort of things. So we edited it, sent it off to the newspaper, and basically in his letter he said, "Hi, my name's Josh. I've just moved to Whangarei from Dunedin. I've had a job in Dunedin and now I want a job in Whangarei, but I can't find one. Will you come and write a story about me, because when people know about me they'll want to give me a job." So I thought, well, that's confidence. So it got sent off, and I think we waited maybe a week, and they contacted us and said, yeah, we'd love to come and do a story. So a reporter and a photographer turned up and they wrote a story. They took a photo of Josh working at the computer, and basically wrote this story about how he couldn't find a job. So that went in the paper on a Wednesday morning, and by Wednesday, probably about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he had 3 different job offers, people who were prepared to meet him and give him a go. One of the jobs was working on a lifestyle block, and he didn't understand what that was, and when I told him, he said, "No thanks, that's not a job." So we had to say no to that person. And then the other one was working for an aluminium company, and the other one was working for a gym, and so he decided to try both of them. The one at the gym, he didn't really understand that he couldn't work out, because that's what he does when he goes to a gym. So because he was often left sitting at the front desk, he'd fall asleep because he was quite bored. So that one didn't quite work out. But the one at Whangarei Aluminium has worked, and he's been there now for, gosh, maybe 9 months roughly, and he loves it. He has a great job. He gets paid his wages like everybody else. He comes home every week very excited about being employed, and shows me his timesheet and his pay slip, and wow, look at this, Mum, I've got money. And yeah, he just loves it, and the people are so awesome to him, and he's just part of their company now. So that was a really cool way of reaching out to our community, and for the community to be able to do something for him. The job at that company wasn't one that was already there, it was one that they actually made so that he could have a job. And I haven't heard from them much this year, so I'm assuming it's going all okay. So this article is the first one that we wrote, and it says about Josh draws a blank with job hunting. So here's Josh sitting at the computer looking for jobs, and this article basically said, you know, how Josh had moved here, how he wanted a job, he'd had a job, how he was going to a powerlifting national competition, and so he wanted to be able to pay his way. And so at the bottom it says, if you can help or point him in the right direction, to email the family. And this article here is one about a follow-up with Josh, with the man who actually works alongside him at work, and they kind of team tag in a lot of ways, because this guy has arthritis in his knees, and so there's some things he can't do and there's some things Josh can't do, so between them they do it. So that's quite cool. So that's just a follow-up saying to the community, you know, thanks for your support, and you know, I guess people were interested in knowing what had happened and if he'd got a job, and so that was just a nice way to be able to say this is what happened for him.
How did the newspaper really help in finding these people that wouldn't have known?
Okay, well, I think the newspaper really helped, because Josh would never have gone along to this place and asked for a job, because there was no job there. So what the newspaper did for us was it opened a whole pile of doors for Josh. People who, you know, often will read something and think, well, I could be able to be involved in this, or it just opens up doors that otherwise you've got no other way of opening. So for us, We've done that twice in Josh's life, and it's both times it's been really, really successful. So I think it's something that is really easy to do if you don't mind your story being put out there. And for us as a family, we don't, because we understand that we're never going to reach a whole pile of people by ourselves. It's better for us to use the media in a positive way and get them to tell our story or tell Josh's story, and then how people respond is usually quite humbling and quite exciting. That people want to be part of Josh's life, in the sense of they wouldn't have known him either unless we did that. So for us, I think it's a really awesome way to go about it. I'd recommend it to anybody. He was 9. So when he was 9, he was having troubles at school, and there was a possibility that he might have to not go to school for a while. So we tried with the school to find ways of making school work for him. And so we decided that he could be out of school, but we needed to have it written into a way that meted the curriculum. So building a house, like a wee hut, a Wendy house, was something that he really wanted to do. So we managed to write that in, because you have to go and buy the wood and you have to count the nails and all that sort of stuff, and so we advertised in the paper, and Josh just we said that Josh was looking for somebody to help him build a hut, and it had to be on this day of the week at this time. And one girl rang up and she offered her boyfriend, and that was quite cute. And there was a few people who rang, but in the end we met this guy, and he came round and spent the time with Josh, and together they built this fantastic Wendy house. Josh was saying all the time that he was building it, that it was his house and his sisters weren't allowed in it, to their disgust, and one of them said, well, it doesn't have your name on it. So the builder turned up on the last day with a name plaque with Josh on it to go on the top of the hut, which really backfired for the sisters, but that was awesome, and out of that also Cadbury's came on board. They saw the story and they wanted to support, and they couldn't send a builder obviously, but they could send chocolate, and Mother Earth brand I think is theirs, and so they'd send along boxes of food for them to share. So again, another way that people could just be part of our lives and part of Josh's life. And the guy who did that got no payment out of it. It wasn't about being paid. For him it was about, oh well, here's a need and I can help this young guy, and together they had a great time, and they stayed friends afterwards until the man actually moved to Australia. We haven't kept in touch obviously, but it was an awesome experience. For me, it's writing to the newspaper isn't about people going, oh my gosh, that poor family, or how can I help them. It's simply about putting a story out there and saying this is a need that I have, and that I can't find a job. So Josh is saying I can't find a job right now, but maybe there's some people out here who can help me find a job. I don't have a lot of resources here, I've only moved here. So it's more about linking in with the community and people who have lived here and got those contacts. And then giving people that opportunity, like people don't know what they don't know. Like if people don't know that there's somebody out there who's looking for a job or somebody who needs a hand with something, then they're not going to offer that, are they? But for us, it's also about what Josh gives to that person as well, So every person who has had some sort of relationship, I guess, with Josh due to something that's been in the newspaper have always said, that they've enjoyed it, that Josh is delightful, that, he's just one of the blokes, they don't treat him any differently. It's just he has something to offer, they have something to offer, and together we make it happen. And that's a really nice way to do it. It's not about going and finding a worker and paying them to do it. It's about just putting it out there and see what happens, and for us every time so far it's been successful. So, sometimes as families we can take the I don't know if it's the easy route, or if it's more just the route that you take, because it's what's in front of you. So you think, well, I'll just go and find a support worker and then they can do it. But it's not about that. That's easy, but it's unreal, This is just a way of one member of the community supports another person, and they have that relationship and they get on with it, and build that natural sort of relationship. Whereas with a support person, you're paying somebody and it's just different.
So you stretch your individualised funding?
Oh, definitely. Always stretching the individualised funding. Always, always, always.